People around the world couldn't believe their eyes when one of the most respected figures on the planet, Pope Leo XIV, met the future Queen of England and refused to shake her hand. At first glance, it seemed like a surprising snub. After all, handshakes are basic gestures of respect and diplomacy. But in this case, what didn't happen spoke louder than anything either of them said. That one quiet moment between the Pope and Princess Catherine sparked a storm of headlines, whispers across royal circles, and waves of speculation across social media. Why did the Pope ignore her outstretched hand? Was it personal? Political? Or was it something much older? Something buried in centuries of history between the Vatican and the British Crown? To understand what really happened, we have to rewind several hundred years. Back in the 1500s, England was a deeply Catholic country. The monarch at the time, King Henry VIII, followed the Pope and the Roman Church, just like every other ruler in Catholic Europe. But then everything changed. When Henry wanted a divorce from his wife, Catherine of Aragon, the Pope refused. In response, Henry took a radical step. He broke away from the Catholic Church, declared himself head of a new Church of England, and changed the course of British history. This wasn't just about ending a marriage. It was the beginning of a centuries-long divide that shaped the identity of an entire nation. That single decision led to generations of religious conflict. Monarchs who followed Henry flipped between enforcing Catholicism and Protestantism. People were imprisoned, executed, and exiled just for their faith. Catholics in England became outsiders in their own country. The Pope's power was rejected. The royal family, once obedient to the Vatican, was now completely independent. For hundreds of years after that, British monarchs stayed away from the Vatican, and the Pope had little to do with the British crown. The two institutions slowly drifted apart, both powerful in their own right, but divided by deep differences in belief, authority, and history. And while things improved in modern times, the core separation still lingers. The Queen, and now the King, remains the head of the Church of England, a faith that doesn't answer to Rome. Meanwhile, the Catholic Church continues to see the Pope as the ultimate spiritual leader for all Christians, a belief that doesn't sit easily with the idea of an independent monarchy-led church. By the late 20th century, relations began to thaw a little. In 1980, Queen Elizabeth II made headlines by visiting Pope John Paul II. It was a major moment of symbolic peace, but even then, the two sides kept their distance. These meetings are rare, and when they do happen, every detail is planned down to the last second. Handshakes, greetings, who stands where. Nothing is random. So when Pope Leo XIV met with Princess Catherine just days after his election and made the unusual decision to skip a handshake, the meaning wasn't lost on anyone. Pope Leo XIV wasn't always a figure in the spotlight. Born Robert Francis Provost in Chicago in 1955, he was a man known more for quiet work than public attention. He was deeply spiritual, a member of the Order of St. Augustine, and spent decades serving communities in Peru, far from the glamour of Rome. He believed in education, humility, and simple living. Even after joining the Vatican's leadership, he stayed grounded. When he was elected Pope in 2025, people were shocked. He was the first American-born Pope, the first from North America, and the first Augustinian to lead the Church. And yet, his message was clear from day one. Less pomp, more purpose. 5 days into his papacy, he met with Princess Catherine, also known globally as Kate Middleton. She had arrived in Rome not for a formal state visit, but for a more personal meeting. That alone was a bit unusual. No royal banners, no official speeches, just a carefully crafted appearance that blended elegance and respect. She wore ivory, with delicate pearls, meant to honor both tradition and diplomacy without being flashy. The meeting space itself was stripped down too. No grand thrones or golden arches, just a quiet room and a pope dressed in a simple red mozzetta over his cassock. No rings, no papal staff, no signs of excess. As Catherine entered, she smiled and extended her hand. It was a polite gesture, one that many expected. But Pope Leo simply looked at her, calm and composed, and did not raise his own. The room went silent for a second. Then, without showing offense, Catherine lowered her hand. A brief flicker of confusion passed across her face, but she recovered instantly. The Pope then turned toward a small table where a basin, a pitcher, and a towel had been prepared. The atmosphere shifted. It was no longer about formal greetings. It became something else entirely. This wasn't a snub. It was something far more intentional. The Pope's refusal to shake her hand wasn't about disrespect. It was about sending a message, not to Catherine herself, but to the world. He was reminding everyone that gestures matter. That sometimes, not doing something is more powerful than doing it. The basin and towel on the table weren't just props. They echoed a famous moment from the Bible when Jesus washed his disciples' feet to show that true leadership means serving others. By stepping away from a usual handshake, Pope Leo made it clear that he wasn't interested in political showmanship. He was focused on humility and service. This approach fits perfectly with the way he leads. Pope Leo doesn't stay in grand apartments or eat elaborate meals. He sleeps on a simple cot and shares meals at plain wooden tables. He doesn't push flashy speeches or strict authority. Instead, he promotes quiet strength, asking bishops to lead with love, not rules. He works to improve education within the church, protect the environment, support migrants, and encourage respect between different religions. He believes that change comes from kindness, not power plays. Catherine's reaction to all of this was equally important. She could have looked insulted or confused. But she didn't. She held her composure, smiled, and continued with the meeting. That quiet grace under pressure showed why she is seen as a rising diplomatic force. She wasn't caught off guard. She understood that this wasn't just about her. It was about something much bigger. It was about history, faith, leadership, and symbolism. The meeting didn't end with a handshake. But it ended with mutual respect. And it left the world asking questions. Was the Pope drawing a line between the Catholic Church and the Church of England? Was he pointing back to the centuries of tension that still hang between the Vatican and the British Crown? Or was he simply trying to remind everyone, from royalty to regular people, that power should never come before service? There may never be one clear answer. That's the power of symbolic moments. They leave room for interpretation. But one thing is certain. This wasn't just an awkward moment in a meeting. It was a carefully crafted signal. It reminded people that the wounds of the past still shape the present. And that even in a modern world, tradition, history, and humility still matter. For those watching closely, the Pope's choice wasn't about shaking hands. It was about showing that spiritual leadership should be different from political power. That while the Vatican and the British monarchy may meet on common ground now and then, they still walk separate paths. And that's okay. The beauty of this moment was that neither side tried to pretend those differences didn't exist. Instead, they respected them, with silence, with stillness, and with dignity. Pope Leo XIV's leadership is not about following old scripts. It's about rewriting them, with grace, patience, and courage. He wants to build a church that leads by example, not by fear. A church that invites, not demands. A church that listens more than it speaks. His refusal to shake the princess's hand was a quiet but powerful way of saying, "This isn't about politics. This is about purpose." Princess Catherine, on the other hand, showed the world that real strength doesn't always come from control. Sometimes it comes from standing still, staying kind, and keeping your head high when things don't go as planned. She left the Vatican not with a grand photo op, but with something far more valuable. A reminder that true diplomacy is about understanding, not always agreement. This moment between two global figures wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. It echoed through headlines, across nations, and deep into the minds of everyone paying attention. It reminded us that even the smallest gestures, or the lack of them, can carry centuries of meaning. And that sometimes, what people choose not to do can speak volumes about who they are and what they stand for. If you found this moment as thought-provoking as we did, make sure to share your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think the Pope meant by his silent gesture? Was it a challenge, a reminder, or simply a reflection of who he is? Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell so you never miss another story that brings history, power, and humanity together in one unforgettable moment.